What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my top 10 least excited fan bases heading into the 2023 college football season. Yesterday's video, I gave you the top 10 most excited fan bases heading into the 2023 season. Now we're doing the opposite today in this video. We're going to give you now the top 10 least excited fan bases for the 2023 season. And these 10 teams that you're going to be seeing on this list are teams that are just not getting a lot of expectations heading into this season, and also fans are just not really hyped up for their team heading into next year as well after a pretty bad season last year in 2022. But some of these teams that you're going to see on here did make it to a bowl game, but they just think the season was not really good from last season, and they think this year is just going to be really a bad season. But anyways, let's get to my top 10 least excited fan bases heading into 2023 college football season. We'll start with number 10, and that's going to be Indiana. Indiana here at number 10 here. They finished 4-8 last season. I don't think Indiana fans are pretty excited for their team this season. If you look at this Indiana program, where they've been in the last couple years, they went 2-10 in 2021. I think fans were really hyped up for them in that season. And then 2022, last year, they went 4-8. So, yeah, it's not been a really good couple seasons for Indiana in the last 2 years. The last time they were really good was like 2020, where they went 6-2 that year during the COVID, season. And in 2019, they were really good as well. They finished, 8-5 that year. So, I mean, Indiana used to be a really big dark horse contender in the Big Ten, 3 years ago and obviously 4 years ago. But the last couple of seasons, they've just been the worst team in the Big Ten East, but not the worst team overall in the Big Ten Conference. But Indiana's just not been really that good overall in the last couple years. And I think fans are not really excited for this upcoming season. So Indiana's my number 10 team on here. Maybe they could turn things around, but you never know about Indiana. I think Tom Allen is pretty much on the hot seat as well, the head coach for Indiana heading into next year. So Indiana could have a pretty tough season heading into next season as well. That's my number 10 team. Number 9 is going to be Arkansas. Arkansas went 7-6 last season, and I don't think Arkansas fans were really pleased with that record from last season. It probably should have been at least 8-4 or 9-3 perhaps, but I had this Arkansas team going 8-4 in the regular season, but instead they went 6-6 in the regular season, and that was kind of a big drop-off. And I think that was their worst-case scenario as well from last season. I think, 7-5 or maybe 6-6 would have been their worst-case scenario, and then obviously 5-7 would have been a lot worse for Arkansas. But I don't think this fan base is really excited for this upcoming season. I know Sam Pittman's turned this Arkansas program around ever since he first came in 3 years ago, but now entering in his fourth season, I kind of expect them to be a better team. I kind of expect them to be like a dark horse contender in the SEC West, and I think that West is going to be wide open this year in the SEC, but it really comes down to the offense and defensive sides of the ball for Arkansas this season. They had a pretty tough schedule last year, and I think fans are just not really hyped up as well for this Arkansas team after a big drop from last season. But I think this Arkansas team will turn it around this year. I kind of expect them to be a 7, 8, 9-win team this season, so they're my number 9 team here on this list. Number 8 is going to be Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State taking a big step back from a year ago after they lost the Big 12 championship to Baylor in 2021. Last year was just not a really good season. 7-6 overall after going to the Big 12 championship game a couple years ago. And now it was a big drop-off from last year. And I think Oklahoma State fans are not really liking where this Oklahoma State team is heading now. Last year's season was pretty tough. They had a pretty tough schedule, but I think Oklahoma State will turn it around, but they lost a lot of guys in the transfer portal, and I think that's the reason why they belong on this list, just because, the guys that they've lost this year have been all into the transfer portal, and really concerns me a lot for this Oklahoma State team. I'm not saying they're going to be a bad team. I think they'll still be like a bowl-eligible team, but really it's going to be about Oklahoma State's season this year. I just don't think fans are really excited for this upcoming season for the Cowboys. They've had a pretty tough season last year, and I think this year is going to be a little bit challenging. I think Oklahoma State can probably still make a bowl game somehow, but I think their fan base is just not really all that excited heading into next year. So that's my number 8 team. Number 7 is going to be Nebraska. Nebraska 4-8 last year in 2022. this is a team that I thought was going to go 8-4 last season, and they just did not live up to those expectations that we thought they would. Nebraska is going to be a new team this season. They have a new era coming in with a new head coach and obviously new expectations. I don't expect them to be, maybe a bowl team in 2023, but they could possibly go 5-7 in their first year, and that would kind of be okay. And then the next year they'll get to a bowl game. But Nebraska's not been good in the last few years either. They used to be a powerhouse Big Ten conference team. They used to be like one of those dark horse contenders in the Big Ten West. But really, the Big Ten West is obviously wide open every single year. It just seems like it goes back and forth every time. But Nebraska is definitely got a fan base that's not really excited as of right now for the upcoming season. I know they're excited for a new head coach, but I just don't think they're really excited for the season after a pretty big drop from last season. And Nebraska just wasn't really that good under Scott Frost over the years that he was there. So Nebraska fans, I think, are kind of expecting something different this season, but it's all about this season. I don't think the fan base is just really all that exciting for them. So Nebraska here at number 7, again 4-8 last season in 2022. Moving on to number 6 is Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech coming off a 3-8 season a year ago. One of the worst, not one of the worst ACC teams from last year, but they were definitely right there in that picture with, another team like Virginia, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Virginia Tech was a really, bad team last year, but they had a first-year head coach, and this is a team, like I said, I thought would challenge for the Coastal Division, maybe with North Carolina and Miami, but Virginia Tech is, got a fan base I don't think is really excited after a pretty big drop from last season. And it was a first-year head coach, don't get me wrong, but it's just really unreal to see Virginia Tech not make it to a bowl game last year. So Virginia Tech, I think their fan base is not really all that excited for where they are heading right now with a new head coach and obviously a second-year head coach now coming into 2023. So Virginia Tech here at number 6. Let's go to the top 5 now. And number 5 is Virginia. Virginia, I just talked about them a while ago. Virginia was probably one of the worst teams in the ACC from last year. They went 3-7 last year. They had their last 2 games canceled after the tragedy that happened, but the Virginia football program has not been good now in the last few years. And I think Virginia fans are all that really hyped up for the upcoming season. And they do have a pretty tough schedule. They have to play Tennessee in the non-conference. That game will be in Nashville. And that's going to be a tough game to start out the year for this Virginia team. So Virginia, their fan base is not really excited. It's just about the fan base here in this video. But, from where they were from last season, I don't think Virginia fans are all that hyped up for this upcoming season. And they also had a first-year head coach, so it's no surprise. But, Virginia it doesn't seem like they are a right team with a first-year head coach so far. And, I don't think fans are just so excited for this upcoming season. They just don't think their coach is the right guy. And also, same for Virginia Tech. They don't think their coach is the right guy. So, Virginia here at number 5. Let's now go to number 4. Number 4 is going to be West Virginia. West Virginia going 5-7 last year. And it's pretty, it's really weird to see West Virginia, not make it to a bowl game last year. This team used to be the dark horse contender in the Big 12, and I don't think fans are really excited for their upcoming season for West Virginia. I think their head coach is definitely on the hot seat. I think he's really close to being on that hot seat. I don't think he'll get fired this year, but it was just a 5-7 season last year. But I think West Virginia fans are not really happy after not making it to a bowl game last year. I did predict West Virginia to go to a bowl game last year. I had them at least going 6-6. They almost did that, but when JT Daniels came in, I thought they would be a big help for them. But West Virginia just did not live up to those expectations that I think they would. So West Virginia, a pretty tough season last year. Their fan base, though, I think is not really excited for this upcoming season. I think anybody is really excited for college football to be back, but I think it's just about the fan base as well for their team. So West Virginia here at number 4. Number 3 is Stanford. Stanford 3-9 last season, and I think this is definitely a team that deserves to be on this top 10 list. They're in a rebuild year now. They have a new head coach this upcoming season. This is going to be a rebuild year for Stanford. It's going to really take some time, and I just don't think their fan base is really hyped up for this upcoming season. I think they're happy with the new head coach, though. You look at the years that Stanford has been playing over the years. They just haven't been really that good. Remember back in the old days, Stanford used to be really that good. They wanted to go back to the early 2010s where they were good in the Pac-12. And Stanford just hasn't been that same team in the last 11 years. It's been crazy. Now for the last 11 years, college football has changed a lot. I mean, some of the top teams are still the same, but Stanford, they just haven't been the same Pac-12 team like they were back in the 2010s. But Stanford, I think their fan base is not really all that excited for this upcoming season. I think they're just excited for a new head coach, but I just don't think they're really excited to see what this Stanford team does heading into 2023. But a 3-9 season last year for Stanford. Let's now go to number 2. Number 2 is Florida. Florida, I don't think anybody expected them to be on this list. Some people may have, expected them to be on this list as well. I don't think this team has really got a good fan base coming into 2023. The reason why Florida is, on this list is because they're not getting a lot of hype this upcoming season for me, and also some others, from sports channels as well. But Florida is a team that has a lot of question marks. I mean, they have a lot of question marks. I mean, especially after losing Anthony Richardson, they lost a lot of talent from last year's team. And this is going to be a different Florida team. Yes, they made it to a bowl game last year. That's good under first-year head coach Napier. But I think, Florida fans don't like Billy Napier. I think he was not the right hire for this team. There were some times where they were inconsistent on the field. The offense just couldn't get it going. And that's going to be the same thing this year. Can the offense get it going here this upcoming season? But Florida this year, I think their fan base is just not really all that excited for this upcoming season. Florida was ranked number 18 in the FBI, which doesn't make any sense either. The FBI does like Florida this year, but I'm not giving a lot of hype for Florida this upcoming season. I think it's going to be a really tough season for Florida. I mean, they do have a pretty tough schedule. They got Utah in the Pac-12 that they had to play in the non-conference. And they obviously do have some tough road games. They have to play Georgia on the schedule, which is every single year. They do have a pretty tough schedule this upcoming season. I think Florida's just not been the same program, since the early 2010s and obviously the 1990s. They want to go back to those ways where they were like Steve Spurrier and obviously Will Muschamp. But it's just been a really, up and down program for Florida now over the years that they've been in college football. So Florida's fan base, though, I think is not really all that excited for this upcoming season. But they're not the most least excited fan base heading into 2023. The least excited fan base heading into the 2023 college football season is going to be Northwestern. Northwestern fans, I think, are not all that excited heading into next season. Take a look at this team. 1-11 last year in the Big Ten, and then obviously only one win in the Big Ten Conference. That was against Nebraska. And it kind of all started with that game. When they got that win against Nebraska, we thought Northwestern's offense was capable of, competing in the Big Ten West and obviously against the Big Ten East. But they were really competitive against Ohio State last year, but they weren't all that competitive in the other games. Of course, there was bad weather in that Ohio State game, so there's no reason why we can't say that they competed in. But, Northwestern, I think their fans are just not really excited after a 1-11 season last year. And I think Pat Fitzgerald is definitely the top coach that's definitely on the hot seat. He could very lose his job this season, but maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe they were a big surprise after a pretty tough season. Maybe it was just a step-back season, and maybe Northwestern could turn things around and possibly make it to a bowl game. But it's really hard to tell what this team is going to look like and obviously how good they're going to be. But I think their fan base is just not all that excited after a pretty big, disastrous season from last year. Really, really big disappointment from last season as well from this Northwestern team. But they're my number one team that has the least excited fan base heading into 2023. And those are my top 10 least excited fan bases heading into the 2023 season. Let me guys know what you think about this top 10 least excited fan base top 10 video. Again, go back and watch my top 10 most excited fan bases heading into 2023. Go back and watch that video from yesterday. And if you want to see more off-season content on this channel, let me know what off-season content you want to see on this channel down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.